We have got another select few group of people stuck in a room for an experiment movie. This one does do a lot of things differently though, I'm so glad to say. Very quickly, if you enjoy the cut of my jib throughout this review, please do consider hitting like and subscribe. It not only helps out the channel, but you're just going to make my day. That being said, let's get on with the review. The Sleep Experiment. So The Sleep Experiment, on an absolute surface level, is like every other movie you've seen before. However, let's get a little bit deeper into this one, shall we? There's really kind of two sides to this movie, so let's break them down. On the experiment side, you've kind of seen a lot of it before. What we have in this specific case, though, is we've got a group of 5 ex-convicts, who we learned were all convicted for murder or attempted murder. It's not the best bunch. Now, I'm not going to go through them all individually. Let's just say you've kind of got the bunch that you would expect. You've got the nervous one, you've got the nice one, you've got the neutral one, you've got the really freaky one who just says really weird shit.
How about the winner gets to piss in a cup and all the losers have to take a sip from it?
Why would you even want to drink my piss? For a laugh!
Like, who thinks of that so fast? And then obviously you've got the big boy muscle. Now the setup for this experiment is that if they complete it, they get their freedom and they get out of prison and they're released. What they have to do is stay awake for 30 days straight. It sounds like a pretty sweet deal for a life sentence for just a month. However, people don't do well without sleep. Staying on the experiment side for just a minute, it does do a few familiar stops. Bags are on the head, so they're in an unknown location to the characters. You know, we've got day counters as the days progress, which I personally really enjoy in movies like this. Just lets you know where they're at. One thing that really took me back though, is we know the experiment's 30 days. At like day 4, it already showed that they were going fucking mad. I don't know what the doctor was expecting here. I really enjoyed the way they introduced the days as well.
We're going to ask you a few questions, and we'd like you to answer them honestly. We'll start with day 1.
I don't know, it just had a nice touch to it. So whilst of course we cannot stay awake for 30 days by natural means, they've got gas getting pumped into the room to keep them awake. I don't know what kind of gas can do that to a person, but it seems to be working for them for the most part. As the days are going on and they're awake for longer, of course we start getting things like hallucinations. The characters are turning against each other and getting suspicious of each other for acts that have either taken place in the room or things they'd done before even coming into the experiment. They may have crossed paths before they ever went in here. Now that you kind of understand the experiment, what it does differently as a movie is that this experiment isn't happening in like the now, or the time in which the movie was set. What we're actually following is Christopher, the doctor who set all this up, getting interrogated by the police 15 years later. They found out about this experiment and the horrific results of it. So we learn very early doors based on the interview how many people died within this room, really where the experiment went wrong. Because you know the end point of the movie at the start, you're now just watching the devolution of these characters. All the while Christopher is trying to explain his point of it and why he'd done the experiment. You know, why it was so important to him to get this research. And it's that kind of balance that really keeps the pacing of the movie up. I'll be honest, both scenes were incredibly tense, whether you're in the room for the experiment or in the interview room. So it's not like one was dull, the other was interesting, so it had to keep jumping between the two. I was hooked on both of these stories playing out. What I like is it's Christopher telling his story, and so it then cuts to the experiment to kind of show you it. Does a little bit of voiceover narration at times as well, just to kind of highlight the storytelling angle. And I will say, these police officers, they're a lot more involved than you would think. Not in the experiment specifically itself, but in regards to finding out why it was done, who Christopher really is, and what his results were. This movie has a surprising amount of reveals in it. Believable reveals as well. We'll see Christopher getting hit with evidence in the room, and then it'll cut back to that evidence within the experiment itself. One example I'll tell you, because they talk about it a lot, is that it wasn't in any of the documents that the subjects would be given diaries.
You're the one who added the diaries without any permission.
Now that played a huge part in the movie, and you don't quite understand the severity of the diaries. You know, I'm watching the first about half an hour of this movie, wondering why that aspect would be such a big deal for the experiment. They're getting pumped with gas, they're awake for 30 days, yet the police are really hooking into this diary aspect. Trust me, it all makes sense why. So being able to just freely move between these two scenarios, the movie never slowed down for me. I was just thoroughly enjoying it, from what Christopher would explain or seeing the effects of it within the experiment. Seeing the characters turn against each other for various situations. You know, they doubt each other a lot, which makes sense when you start seeing some of the shit that's going down. They even start getting suspicious of the subject that's just really chill and calm because he's chill and calm. Like, they don't trust him for that reason as well. And the fact they're all murderers. They don't know each other's backstories. So the fact they're all murderers, not everyone's necessarily truthful in it, but also you know what they've got in their heads. And don't worry, this isn't a spoiler, but Christopher says early to the police that the reason for this experiment was to see someone who has that tendency, how they would react to 30 days without sleep. Because to any normal person, you go fucking insane. So someone that's already kind of there, how would they react? Didn't think it would be like this. I mean, I should have. I didn't think it at the same time. You know what I mean? The movie's broken down into chapters as well. Chapters are always hit and miss for me because obviously the chapters need to be named so when they get their subtitles. So because that subtitle then sets up maybe the next 10 minutes of the movie, you kind of know what you're looking out for. So it kind of spoils the next 10 minutes. Thankfully, in this case, there wasn't necessarily any spoilers, but it does just set up immediately what it is to keep an ear out for and what to look for. You know, chapter 2 is a prime example. See the big guy in the room? He needs to open his teeth.
You'd actually murder a child?
Like, he talks the whole time like this, and you sometimes struggle to understand him.
What exactly does a child have to do for you to justify killing them?
Which really doesn't fucking help. Listen, I get you're mad, but like, open your teeth, man, so we can hear you a bit better.
In my most recent video request, somebody was asking me, how can I stop clenching my jaw?
And as for the scientists, they've done this experiment, they know all the chemicals, the compounds, and they have got such control on it. Well, until they don't. Now, we're already so far into this experiment, and then the scientists throw this line out.
The gas, it's stopping the process of melatonin, right? That's what's keeping them awake. If we turn it off, then they will fall asleep. It would just be a matter of going in and taking Patrick out while he's sleeping.
That could work. And how can we be absolutely sure that they'll fall asleep?
What do you mean, how do we know they'll sleep? They've been awake for fucking ages. Guarantee you turn the gas off, they're out like a fucking light. That's not necessarily a gripe, but that line just stood out to me. So what would I be saying for the sleep experiment? If you enjoy these type of movies, you know what it is, people just stuck in a room together, make time for this movie. It is one of those confined movies. Now, if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you'll probably know by now that I love these movies, these kind of claustrophobic films. Whilst it moved between two separate stories, both of them were very claustrophobic, whether it was within the experimentation room or it was within the interview room. I thought it was great and you felt that. You know, you felt confined along with the characters. Thought the performances were... they were alright. They'd done the job, you got to learn who they were very quickly because they're all a little bit standard. Christopher and the police were the standout performances though. When it comes to that police room, you've got the best acting on show. But then when it cuts back to the experiment, you've got the most intrigue on show. Well, half the intrigue. But then it cuts back to the experiment and then you just have more characters bouncing off each other. So it was good dynamics in both rooms, but performance was definitely in the interview room. A lot of the movie does tie together more than you're going to expect. There's a lot of great reveals within it, and I like the fact that this experiment took place years ago. You know, it's not in real time. You know, so we're getting someone telling them their experience of it, as opposed to watching it carry out in real time whilst they're talking to the doctor. Now look, have you seen the sleep experiment? Let me know down below if we agree or disagree. I would love to see it. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. It helps out my channel immensely, and I just love to see it. And as always, thank you so much for watching.